This is the third episode in a series on how and why Solomon's Quest is different from other Bible study methods. Be sure to check out previous episodes on our YouTube channel, Solomon's Quest. Now let's think about fish and butterflies for a moment. We have inadvertently been led or trained to believe that we are unable to prepare a Bible study on our own. That is because, in part, we have learned from existing models of curriculum, books, and DVDs that those are what Bible study lessons look like. And if those actually did represent the only ways to create quality, life-changing Bible studies, I would have to agree that it would be very difficult for almost all Bible study leaders and small group facilitators to create something comparable. Now, I said it inadvertently, because I do not believe that anyone intentionally started out trying to make the church dependent on third-party content creators. However, at some point, I do believe that third-party organizations crossed over from supporting ministry as a primary focus to being dependent on the vast majority of churches to continue buying their content lest they struggle to stay in business. Now, I am not saying that there is anything wrong with organizations creating content and selling them to Christians and churches. Those resources do have a place and can have value, especially for new Christians and new leaders. There's nothing wrong with that. What is problematic, in my opinion, is that for so many churches, they cannot imagine any other way. And so the largest organized ministry group in your church is directed and led by the philosophy, strategy, and content of a third-party organization. In the 1990s, I returned to seminary to work on my doctorate. One of the classes I had to take was an adult education class. This was one of the few required education classes for theology students at that school. I imagine the thought was that every pastor needs to know something about education. The instructor for that class had most recently been employed at the denomination's literature publishing house. There's not much that I remember about that course, due in part to how vividly I recall just one day. Keep in mind that this institution has a robust master's and doctoral level religious education program. And that day, in a class filled mostly with what we used to call preacher boys, this instructor said, "It is not possible, week in and week out, to provide better Bible study material than that which is provided by," and then he named his former employer, the denomination's publishing house. Well, this was before I had spent 20 years in the publishing industry, including 10 years in Christian publishing, but it was long after I had used and then tired of third-party resources. I grew tired of the lack of impact that those resources were having on the lives of my people, on the spiritual challenge for my leaders, and the spiritual challenge for the participants in their groups. I don't think I made a friend that day when I strongly questioned him on such a statement, passionately disbelieving any merit in his position, as 10 years of training and experience were just the opposite of what he said. There is a well-known but hard to attribute proverb that speaks of fish. There are many variants, but in general, if you give a man a fish, you have fed him for a day. And if you teach him how to fish, you have empowered him to feed for a lifetime, without you or any other third-party intervention. Literature and curriculum can be part of the teaching people how to fish, but if there is no plan to move beyond the predictable and the provided, then that material can end up being, as one of my board members has said, a crutch, knowing that the work has already been done for you. And while the material is almost always doctrinally sound, the leader far too often lacks the enthusiasm of ownership and discovery for themselves, and therefore they lack the passion to help others experience what God has shown them. By the way, look for episode 2 of What's the Difference to understand what I mean by ownership. Do you know what happens when you do the work for a butterfly that is struggling to get out of their chrysalis? Well, sometimes they die. Very often they live the rest of their lives walking along the branches and grasses of wherever they have fallen out of the chrysalis with damaged or misshapen wings. This is because the struggle of freeing themselves, discovering for themselves, strengthens their wings so that they can soar in just the way God designed them. If they don't struggle, their wings don't develop and they don't fly because they can't fly. Now let me ask you to consider. If you are or have been a Bible study leader, did you ever consider taking a break from the effort because the walk was long and hard? Oh, I know the people are great. You love the fellowship. You enjoy the people in your group. But preparing for and leading that study, did you just ever wish there was a better way? Or consider if you are a staff member responsible for enlisting volunteer leaders for small group Bible study or Sunday school, whatever your group calls it. Have you ever lost leaders because they tired of the walk, or struggled to enlist new leaders because they had experienced the walk as a participant and did not want to step into it as a leader? At some point, if we don't dream of Bible study leaders that can fly and soar, we may well have to remain content with prepackaged third-party walking materials. Solomon's Quest can help your leaders fly and soar, and in so doing, they can help the members of their groups fly and soar. This process can easily be learned in a one-day, highly interactive workshop. And while it is true that those trained will be able to use the method right away, they will get better with time, mastering and enjoying a process that saves them hours of time each week and restores enthusiasm to their ministry with their group. Visit us at solomonsquest.org and click on the button to request a conversation. The conversation costs you nothing. We have no curriculum to sell. But in a one-day workshop, we can teach your leaders how to soar and how to fish. Reach out to us at solomonsquest.org.